Good morning. This is the Great Basin Smoke Dispersion Briefing for Friday, February 28th. Looking at precipitation over the past week, most significant amounts across far southern areas in the green and dark green, anywhere from a half inch to locally an inch of rainfall. That equated to a significant snowfall in the highest terrain, but bone dry as you head further northwards for a change. On the right-hand side, you see the percent of normal, above normal in those bluish and purplish colors to the south, and then central areas on northwards, basically anywhere from 0 to less than 20% of normal precipitation for the week. On the left-hand side, no significant snowfall over the past 72 hours. Snow on the ground continues to be quite prevalent, especially across the higher terrain of Utah, western Wyoming, and the mountains of central Idaho and northeastern Nevada. Sierra front, all the snow you see here is what fell in November and December into early January. Been bone dry there for much of the last month and a half. Satellite imagery shows some high clouds building into the Great Basin, southern areas ahead of this low pressure trough off the Pacific coast. A deeper storm system off the Pacific Northwest coast will push southwards and tap some of this moisture and finally bring some wet weather to many areas in the north and central part of the geographic area by the end of the weekend. Also, with this low pressure area, both of these moving together, that should provide an improving dispersion trend. 1,000-hour fuels with that dryness have dried to single-digit levels in these areas in the golden orange here across southern Nevada, and anywhere from 11 to 15%, which is still unusually dry for this time of year across much of the central part of the geographic area. So for later today, high pressure still weakly overhead with fairly dry conditions under this tannish shade. You can see the storm system, the deep one off the British Columbia coast and off the Southern California coast. So better dispersion across western areas closer to low pressure, where you see those areas in white. Deeper inversions where you see those purple areas in the eastern portion of the Great Basin. Sea transport winds out of the southwest starting to pick up, greenish to orange shades, anywhere from 15 to 25 miles per hour. But lighter winds, especially east of the Wasatch, eastern Utah, under some inversions. You can see the vertical mixing the worst in the eastern areas, but several thousand feet above ground level, central and western areas of the Great Basin. Now tomorrow that moisture really explodes as that low pressure area drops down into the Pacific Northwest, taps some of that moisture that was off the Southern California coast. So pretty good precipitation areas in the green, especially later in the day. You can see dispersion really improving in areas in the white here across the much of the western two-thirds of the Great Basin. Excellent transport winds, maybe too much of a good thing, gusting to over 30 or 40 miles per hour in the purple. You can see that drop-off in winds still across far eastern Idaho into the Uinta Basin. Vertical mixing best across the western two-thirds of the area, still lagging behind a bit in the far east. Now on Sunday, that low-pressure area is centered over the Great Basin, over the Utah-Nevada border. Significant precipitation, areas in the green. A lot of this is going to miss the higher terrain of Idaho, but you can see the excellent overall dispersion, northerly transport flow. Really good day for dispersion on Sunday, and that's because of the strong transport winds coming in out of the north across Nevada and still coming out of the southwest across southern Utah, and excellent overall vertical mixing under that low pressure area. The Utah Clearing Index, also a different measure of dispersion, shows that improving trend from Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, much more in the way of orange and red colors, indicating excellent overall vertical dispersion. And 3-day precipitation totals, moderate amounts, locally heavy across the Uintas, the higher terrain of northern Utah, and finally across the Sierra front, where they could see anywhere from 6 to 12 inches of snow in those areas. Lesser amounts up in Idaho, and lesser amounts further south as well. And then on Monday, that low-pressure system departs and splits to the south and north. We start getting northerly flow, but we're still under the influence of low pressure, so excellent overall ventilation, especially areas in the white. We see that trend continuing, even though high pressure building in. Still excellent overall dispersion Tuesday into Wednesday. Missing the ventilation on Thursday, but it still stays good as strong winds from the southwest combined with a deepening storm pushing out of the Gulf of Alaska So really no stagnation in sight for us as we go into early March. The precipitation for early next week, Monday through Wednesday evening, shows minimal across our area, except some light amounts across western Wyoming. The 8 to 14-day outlook does show a wetter signal for a good portion of California, Nevada, Utah, especially the further south and west you go. Looks like the storm track may miss out a little bit more in those northern areas. Temperatures slightly above normal through the period. This concludes our briefing. Have a great day.